Hello YouTube, Morkez Marihser here. For those of you who aren't new to this channel, I made a video last summer about ideas I wanted to see come to Death Battle. And I did that without a script or that much research, and it kind of shows. But rather than dwell on the past, I think it's time to look to the future. Right now, during the mid-season 8 break, the matchup we have to get hyped about for a couple months is... Oh. And his opponent is almost guaranteed to be... Uh-huh. Well, I don't know about you guys, but let's not kid ourselves. For as hype as Marvel or DC characters can be in the show, they've taken up a third of the episodes. And Marvel and DC together takes up half of that still. I did the math to be sure. Yes, it's one of the most classic franchise rivalries, but so is Star Wars versus Star Trek, and I still haven't seen Kirk versus Solo. So naturally, when I see there's a lot of something I'm knowledgeable about, I decide to rank it all. It's kind of something I've done lately. That and make a movie about Marvel fighting another of their classic rivalries. Because I'm completely out of my mind. I just marathoned 23 episodes of Death Battle, from Season 1 to mid-Season 8. Every time a Marvel character has fought a DC character. I took notes on them based on my enjoyment, and then ranked them on a curve, allowing for leniency on the Season 1-ness of earlier episodes. So, let's get this started, and hope it isn't the worst idea I've ever had. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm probably gonna come up with something much worse down the line. Too late to quit now. The combatants are set. Let's end this mess once and for all.
23, Batgirl versus Spider-Gwen.
Well, I gave this one a chance not to be at the bottom, and it failed. And hey, if it weren't for my grading these on a curve, it would at least place better than Rogue versus Wonder Woman. But for something that just came out last year as opposed to 10 years ago, it fails that much harder. The matchup sucks. The jokes in the analysis are terrible. The animation is flat out ugly and often nonsensical. The best thing I can say about it is that the voice acting is fine, and it meets the modern quality for rundown editing. Overall, Bat vs. Spider 3, Estrogen Edition, is the weakest one yet. Hey, you come up with a better name for it.
22, Rogue versus Wonder Woman.
Spoiled this one a bit, didn't I? Even for just episode 3, the jokes constantly being about their bodies and what Boomstick would like to do with them are not funny. The fight does have one decent moment, but the result would have been averted by Diana's own training and the presence of pants. And why this matchup to begin with? Because they're attractive superheroines? Even the 2 prior episodes had better reasons than this. I feel dirty watching it.
21, Venom versus Bane.
This fight was a joke. A joke on itself, a joke on the name Venom, and a joke on the audience. No suspense, no surprises, outdated characterization for Venom, and the animation does not save it thanks to excessive shaky cam, for some reason, and lots of blending into the background. I actually skipped out on this episode the first time and only bothered with it months later. And you know what? I don't regret that decision.
20, Black Panther versus Batman.
Alright, look. Before this point, we had Batman losing a fair fight to Spider-Man and cheesing Captain America. But against Black Panther? There were no questions. At all. This was a boring, predictable stomp. And that's exactly what this episode was. And if I'm gonna judge this against Batman's other appearances, considering they were seasons 1 and 2 as opposed to 5, this one comes out the weakest easily. But if you need me to point out a positive, the sprites for Batman were surprisingly good and the zoo added plenty of variety. But that is honestly all I've got.
19, Batman versus Captain America.
So wing and a miss. The analysis started off fine, but got so dull for both characters as it went on. The fight was the same way. starting off with well-choreographed combat, but getting weaker and weaker before an honestly stupid kill. Batman essentially won by having more than just one gadget, and I'm still not sure how Batman snapped Captain America's neck. It's not clear. Overall, it's just boring. And this is Captain America's best matchup, so it's a darn shame.
18. Thanos versus Darkseid.
I used to be disappointed in this one because of the result and how Grant Morrison's writing is completely bonkers. I came to terms with that rather quickly. Now, I'm disappointed by everything else. Small things like time-wasting cameos and voice acting I feel should have been switched. Medium things like the overuse of MCU content, even in Darkseid's analysis. And bigger things like Deadpool with a freaking gun. It isn't without merit, there are memorable set pieces, and I'm a sucker for the Thanos copter. But this was just depressing.
17. Batman Beyond versus Spider-Man 2099.
At first I was ashamed I forgot the content of this episode, but upon a rewatch I think I know why. Good things first. By this point, the editing in the rundowns is improving drastically, and the side captions are more noticeable, and they even contain some humor. The animation has some issues though. I'm not a fan of the voice acting, the sprite work is very janky, and the kill is probably the reason I forgot this. The episode isn't exactly bad, but it could have been a lot better.
16. Lex Luthor versus Dr. Doom.
What an aggressively middle-of-the-road episode at the end of my marathon. My opinion on it hasn't had much time to change, but for as much as I see myself warming to some aspects, I see others getting worse. Lex's analysis is not funny or even all that interesting. Doom, well, his analysis is better than against Vader, which isn't saying much. And the fight, while incredibly well animated, drags a lot from the pontification. For something this overwritten, you'd think they'd at least mention 40 cakes. I mean, they did the last time. Although, they did put in 3 consecutive foot dives and Lex doing Superman's Injustice 2 finisher. Look, I could go back and forth on this for a while. The episode is just memorably average.
15. Ghost Rider versus Lobo.
I had a bit of a hard time separating my enjoyment of this from the back of my mind screaming that this should have been a stalemate. But when I watched it again specifically for this marathon, I found myself enjoying the whole episode quite a bit, especially the animation. And the jokes in Lobo's rundown, well, they actually made me pause and crack up for quite a while. Still, a few things I couldn't shake. The Deadpool cameo was incredibly annoying, there was way too much eating going on, and the actual killing blow should not have worked. Still, it's overall a net positive.
14. Green Arrow versus Hawkeye.
This was a lot better than I remember. Probably because the first time, it was fresh off my least favorite episode. Still, it's just good, not great. The analysis is pretty good, especially for Green Arrow. The fight is the weakest part in my opinion, since it's almost entirely about the actual archery. I get the reason why, but there's a lot more to offer with these two than just that. And the voice acting, or lack thereof, kind of. The Hawkeye clips are good, but I'm not entirely sure what's going on with Oliver.
13. Aquaman versus Namor.
You think you're ready for the announcer to stop calling fight, and then it happens. Regardless, this episode's decent. The analyses were good enough, with a stupid moment capped off by Boomstick and Pain, which, hey, that's always a plus in my book. The fight, I don't like how Aquaman has his film characterization, though Namor is perfectly petty, of course. And the fight itself, while feeling a bit like it was underwater, above water, it was good. I do feel there's a missed opportunity with the setting of Atlantis and who gets to sit in the throne, though that might just be me.
12. Flash versus Quicksilver.
Okay, let's set aside how this has one of the most obvious results in series history. Within the episode itself, I'm mixed on the way they portrayed Barry's entire character. The death is just plain weird, and if I were playing a drinking game on Marvel Versus Capcom 3 or CW music, I'd be dead. But the analyses are very well handled, and the animation has some really memorable moments, such as the pretty comical way this even starts. Overall, it's actually a lot better than I gave it credit for the first time.
11. Deadpool versus Deathstroke.
I remember liking this a lot more. The analysis is pretty good, with some great humor and personality, even for Deathstroke. And at least that carries into the fight, which it lasts way too long, and has some very awkward parts in it all over the place. What's good is good, don't get me wrong, but the whole thing is stretched out way too far. Way too far. And if I'm starting to get sick and tired of Deadpool by the end of his first appearance, well, that doesn't bode well for the future, does it?
10. Captain Marvel versus Shazam.
I remember being absolutely certain they'd give it to Carol for stupid reasons, and seeing Brie Larson in the thumbnail didn't help. And I was pleasantly surprised. On a rewatch, I was pleasantly surprised again, since now I was viewing the episode on its own merits. While the rundowns range from less than tasteful jokes for Billy to unfunny ones for Carol to a pretty good sum up of the legal history, the fight is where it shines. Great writing, good choreography, and the first original music track I've really paid attention to at this point in the marathon, for the JLU and Avengers themes. Overall, not perfect, but still really well done.
9. Miles Morales versus Static.
I don't really have as much to say about this one as I'd like. The jokes are good and even a bit meta, and the animation is style over substance in the best way possible. But I don't know how to describe why I don't love it. Well, a couple things. The rap is distracting as all hell, so it's hard to focus on the fight, and a couple jokes had me yelling "time and place" at the screen during the analysis. But they're honestly minor in one of the better season premieres.
8. Thor versus Wonder Woman.
This was a far better matchup for both ends than their previous opponents, and the episode even says so. Though for Wonder Woman, just about anything would be an upgrade. And while I'm not covering Thor versus Raiden, I think I enjoy this one slightly less. I can't put my finger on why. The analysis is good considering both characters have impressive feats and some absurd anti-feats. The animation's good, even with disparate model quality and some weird particle effects. Though at this point in the marathon, I noticed an over-reliance on Marvel vs. Capcom hyper combos. They're great fan service, I love them. But there are a lot of them.
7. Doctor Strange versus Dr. Fate.
Just getting this out of the way first. Close my foot! Anyhow, this is a good one. Incredibly creative and ironically chaotic. The animation was a bit hard to follow at times, and the analysis and summary didn't quite match up at the end. But that is outweighed by the concepts on display that utilize these characters to their fullest. But don't pull our leg, Death Battle. One True Fate is overpowered. We can handle that.
6. Batman versus Spider-Man.
This is about when they got their act together in the early days. Giving neither side prep time was good to establish early, and the analysis was amazing by Season 1 standards. Save for Boomstick and Spider-Man segment. The fight is excellent, conveying their different tactics, battle styles, and personalities, with good use of Josh Keaton voice clips and giving both characters time to shine. To me, this is hands down the best episode of Season 1.
5. Nightwing versus Daredevil.
I tried to treat this like a normal episode instead of a milestone. So, how did it hold up? Well, the analysis was informative and well edited, but awkward and with less than stellar jokes. The fight, yeah, it holds up, making up for any issues in the analysis, and then some. It feels like professional reel for an Arrow-style action series. Hell, the action's occasionally better than those series. The characterization is on point, from Nightwing's minor showmanship to Daredevil remaining intimidating without any eye contact. Daredevil's actor could have put on a deeper voice, but that's just me. And I'm probably in the minority when I say, I actually really like the kill. Overall, yeah, this one is worth remembering.
4. Cable versus Booster Gold!
This is better than it has any right to be, and it actually treats both characters with respect and really good humor. Heck, even the host segments were funny in this one. And sure, the dinosaur didn't look great, but the fight was full of amazing sprite work otherwise, and incredible writing. They even snuck in some references to Breath of the Wild. And that kill, that's one of the most subtly gruesome things I've ever seen. All in all, this episode is a charming, underappreciated piece of work. Just like Booster. I doubt that was intentional, but hey, I'll take it.
3. Winter Soldier versus Red Hood!
It is so weird saying the title in that order. Still, it did not disappoint. To specifically compare it to Nightwing vs. Daredevil, the fight is not quite as excellent, with a weaker kill and Bucky looking weird. But it is still written and acted very well, and the atmosphere is perfect. The rest? Well, the analysis is edited amazingly, and while the result was correct, there was plenty of information missing to back it up, even at a cursory glance. Does it bring the episode down in my eyes? Honestly, no, it doesn't.
2. Hulk versus Doomsday!
I will be blunt. Season 3 felt pretty darn weak, with one incredible exception. Setting aside the outdated result, the biggest downsides I can point out are Boomstick's dad jokes and some odd stuff in the animation. Paint bucket civilians, anyone? This is still an excellent display of sheer adrenaline, and is a very fun match to follow, and the analysis kept consistent with that quality. Though there maybe could have been better sound effects for the straight punches, it's still better than when Hulk returned at least, I'll give it that.
1. Iron Man versus Lex Luthor!
There's a reason I decided not to make a favorite episodes video or another ideas video. Not because they've been done to death, although they have, but because this is my absolute favorite episode, bar none. The only flaws I can find in the whole thing were the analysis mixing up Afghanistan with Vietnam and one joke about Power Girl. And then there's the animation. Plenty of people before me have gone into just how perfect it is, so I don't want to repeat tread ground. I'll just say that this whole time, I've been playing human. And leave it at that. This was, to borrow a phrase, their Sunday best. That aired on a Monday. Unless you had a membership, in which case it was still Sunday. This joke is over. Well, that was an experience. Was it a good one? Was it a bad one? I don't know, and I'm going to bed. And if I do another death battle video next year, it's not going to be something like this. I'll just come up with some other terrible idea. Won't that be fun? If you enjoyed this, check out my previous death battle video, my recent ranking videos, and the movie I made for Marvel Versus Capcom Infinite in the description, end cards, and so on. If you like what you see, subscribe and stick around for whatever else I make. It'll either be similar, completely different, or somewhere in between. That is a 100% guarantee. This is Morkez Marihser, signing off. Because I'm Batman.